Well, hello everybody, it is Link, the Gulf Coast Gardener, coming to you almost live from Jamaica Beach, Texas, on the west end of sunny Galveston Island. Today is Tuesday, April the 4th, and it's been great weather here in Jamaica Beach. We've had sun, we've had warm weather, we've had some rain, and the plants are really happy. So let's go take a look at the garden and see what's been going on out here. So before we take a look at the garden, I want to point out these volunteer zinnias that have popped up where I used to have a compost pile. You never have flowering zinnias in April, but these guys popped up all on their own, and we have flowers growing in the yard. I absolutely love this, and you'll see a really nice dill plant over there as well. Once you get your dill established, it'll be popping up all over the place. You'll probably never need to seed it again. Now, starting at this end, you'll see a really nice patch of cilantro. This is probably my 5th planting of cilantro dating back to October of last year, and I continually plant cilantro so that I always have a really good supply. And I like to plant it nice and thick, and it stays clean that way because the dirt really doesn't bounce up on the leaves when there's so much foliage. Now, it also helps to mulch it in with grass clippings or oak leaves, a leaf mulch, and that'll also keep your cilantro nice and clean. I don't even have to wash this when I cut it. I just cut what I need for dinner, and it's good to go, clean, straight from the garden. Now over on the left, wow, check out these borage plants. I started these from seed, I think about 6 weeks ago, and I've already thinned out half the plants and moved them to other places in the garden because they do need room to grow. These are gonna make some absolutely fantastic flowers that the pollinators love, and it is super easy to grow from seed. So if you're looking for some really showy plants that are gonna flower like crazy, check out borage. Now here's a couple of things I've been messing with lately. I've been building these herb gardens in pots. I basically put oregano, thyme, I've got peppermint, and I also have rosemary in this particular pot. And a lot of my customers really love those things. So I'll be making more of those, and if you're interested, just let me know and I can put one together for you as well. Now next to this borage, these are butter crunch lettuces, and they are fantastic. I've already eaten about half of this row and even shared some with neighbors. So the nice thing about having a ton of lettuce is you can share it with your friends and family. Now, I did clean these up a little bit. They don't always look this perfect, but I cleaned up some of the dead leaves around so you can see how pretty these heads are. Now, when you grow butter crunch lettuce, don't panic at first because it looks like a big floppy mess, right? There's leaves all over the place, but gosh, you come back one day and all of a sudden you have these really nice, full, buttery heads. And this stuff is like butter. It is like silk when you're eating this butter crunch lettuce. So you can't really get lettuce like this in the stores. So definitely grow it yourself. And it's super easy to grow from seed. Now here in Jamaica Beach, you should be growing lettuce roughly from October through April or so. The other months are really too hot. If you're gonna grow it in the warmer months, just plant it where it gets afternoon shade because the summer sun, the summer western afternoon sun will just wipe out your lettuce. Now here's a couple of plants that I am super excited about. These are dwarf tomatoes, and I've never grown dwarf tomatoes before, but these plants are gorgeous. I love these potato leaf, healthy plants. They got really thick foliage. The stems are nice and thick. And dwarf tomatoes are a cross between a determinate tomato, which is a bush tomato, as well as an indeterminate that grows really big and crazy. Well, I'm tired of managing tomatoes, and these dwarf tomatoes are only gonna require a single stake, which is what I've got in the ground here, and they're only gonna get 3 feet tall or so, but they're gonna produce flowers all season, so it's the best of both worlds. This particular variety is Rosella Purple, and everything I read, the flavor is supposed to be phenomenal, a lot like Cherokee Purple, so super excited about these Rosella Purple tomatoes. I'll have a few more for sale later in the year, so if you're interested, let me know. Next to the purple tomatoes, check out these beets. I picked my first mess of beets yesterday. It took about 90 days for my first harvest when it should be 65 to 70 days, but the weather was pretty lousy for a couple of months here. But times are better now, and the plants look really good. And I plant these really thick, so there's no weeding required. Although I do have remember what I said about dill, how it pops up everywhere? There's another dill plant, so I'll dig that up and transplant it one of these days. But plant some beets. They're really easy to roast with just a little olive oil, salt, and pepper, and the flavor is phenomenal. And if you've never had pickled beets before, pickle your own beets, and you will become a true believer, just like me. Now, over on this side, I have a couple of more tomato plants. The first one is a Galahad tomato. This is a determinate tomato, so it's a bush tomato. I grew it last year and absolutely loved it. It makes these big, beautiful red slicers that are very much like an heirloom, and they had a lot of disease resistance as well. They survived all summer long, so I'm a big fan of Galahad tomato. And then next to that, I've got another dwarf tomato. I didn't get this one in the ground at the right time, so it doesn't look great, but it's starting to come around. This is a dwarf Eagle Smiley. It's a yellow cherry tomato that's also a dwarf variety, like I mentioned before. And next to that, I've got a Patio Choice yellow tomato. I read great things about these Patio Choice tomatoes. They also don't get too huge, so this little simple steak should be all that it needs. They're AAS award winners, and so the flavor should be excellent. Now, if you're interested in growing some kale, I recommend dinosaur kale. It's also known as lacinato kale, and it produces right through the summer heat. These 3 plants will produce all the kale that we could possibly consume. So if you're into kale, check out dinosaur kale. It's absolutely wonderful. Now, I've got some chives over here as well. Now, I didn't grow these from seed, but I want to point out, always keep your eye out for good deals, especially on herbs. As you know, little 4-inch pots of herbs can be really small and cost $5. I picked up these rosemary plants for $1.99 a piece. Heck, the price might even have been incorrect. I double checked with the nursery and they said that's what it cost, so I picked them up and I moved them into gallons. And as you can see, I've got 4 beautiful large rosemary plants, and it really didn't cost me that much at all. Roaming over to this bed, these are datil peppers. I'm growing these for the first time this year. I've got a local restaurant that wants to buy some, so I'm going to see what I can do about providing peppers to my local restaurant here in Jamaica Beach, which is really cool. And I am doing a little experiment. I had a video, you may have seen it before, where I pruned the top node of some of these peppers to encourage more bushy growth, and it's actually working really well. You can see over on this node, on this pepper, it shows up really well. I trimmed that top node, and look at all of the new bushy growth that popped out of here. So it's gonna keep it a little smaller, so it may not need support, and it's gonna bush out instead of getting tall and leggy. And look at this one back here. That's one that I didn't trim. So it's already taller, it's a little thinner, whereas these guys are nice and bushy and compact. So I think trimming that top node is a really good idea, but I'm gonna compare the production and see if there's any difference. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be trimming the top nodes of my peppers going forward, just to keep the plants a little more manageable. Now over on this side, this is my thyme patch. I love having a big patch of thyme. I use it a lot in the kitchen, and in the summertime, if you've never put thyme and lemon in water, it is absolutely wonderful. Make yourself a big jug of thyme lemon water. It's super refreshing, and it's really unusual as well, and I think you will really enjoy it as much as I do. Now back here we have a few more of those lacinato or dinosaur kale plants. I've got some society garlic. I actually picked that up at a plant swap. I knew nothing about society garlic, but check your local area. If they have plant swaps and you have some plants to trade, you can get some really interesting stuff. That is a mist flower, which if you watched any of my videos, you know I'm a huge fan of mist flower. Once it gets established, you just can't get rid of it. And it's just a wonderful plant for the pollinators. The butterflies especially love mist flower. I'll show you a big patch of it I have in just a couple of seconds. Now there's some cilantro that I started from seed. I'm gonna put those in a pot over on the south side of the house because it's getting a little too warm and sunny for cilantro. So I'm gonna give that some afternoon shade and see if I can keep it from bolting and get more into the summer. Those are some thyme plants as well as some Victoria Blue Salvia. Look up my video on Victoria Blue Salvia. It may be my favorite flowering perennial. I'll try to give you a shot of that in just a couple of seconds. It's been phenomenal. Again, the pollinators just love it. Now this is another of one of my favorite tomatoes that I grew last year. This is called Esterina. This is a yellow cherry tomato. It is indeterminate and it gets pretty big, so be aware. I think once this tomato gets to the top of the cage and a little bit beyond, I'm just gonna clip the top main stem, which will keep it from growing any taller, and it'll just focus all of its energy on the fruit. These tomatoes are sublime. They're tiny little cherry yellow tomatoes. The flavor is hard to describe. It's very sweet, but also a little bit tart. It's just amazing. It's the best cherry tomato I've ever eaten. It's called Esterina. I do have some of these available still. If you're interested, just let me know in the comments or send me a message or an email. And then next to that, I have another tomato plant. I forget which one this is. I know I have a tag in here somewhere, but I don't see it. I suspect it's another Galahad tomato, if I'm not mistaken. So I'll have a couple of red slicers to go along with that yellow cherry tomato. Now next to that, this is really something fun to grow. This is purple basil. I've got various kinds of basil growing this year. I'm growing the standard green Genovese basil. I'm also growing some lime basil that my neighbor gave me the seeds. and it smells like lime and basil. It is absolutely amazing. So I'll have a bunch of lime basil in the next couple of weeks. But this purple Petra is absolutely beautiful. Now here are two more dwarf tomatoes. These are summer sweet gold. These are going to be big yellow slicers. And again, look at these plants. They're phenomenal. Look at that super thick stem in there. This may not need any support at all. I've got the stakes in the ground and I might tie them up, but they might not even need it. So really excited about growing dwarf tomatoes. It's possible that next year this is the only variety I'll grow, dwarf tomatoes that is, because they make so many different varieties. So I plan on having 8 or 10 different dwarf varieties and finding the absolute best ones. Now down on the end, these are just some jalapeno peppers. I didn't grow these from seed. I picked them up at the nursery. We eat a ton of jalapenos. They're easy to start from seed, just like any other pepper, but I didn't have any. And I sometimes can't leave a nursery without plants, so I bought these jalapenos. So I should be good to go on jalapenos for this year. Now over here, we have yet another tomato. This is another one of the Galahad tomatoes, so I should have plenty of tomatoes this year. These were very disease resistant last year. My biggest challenge was keeping them shielded from the wind and keeping the birds from pecking holes in every tomato. This was their favorite tomato. So I ended up wrapping some floating row cover around it, which would keep the birds off. Now these are dianthus that I grew from seed. I absolutely love growing flowers. And this is called sweet red cherry dianthus. I got these from Johnny's Selected Seeds, and these plants are really pretty. They're perennials. They produce flowers pretty much all through the season here. Look, this one's about to flower already. First one, I just noticed that. That is awesome. Now these are super easy to grow from seed, so start thinking about starting your own flowers from seed, even perennials. I'm gonna have a ton of flowers off these guys in the first season, and then they very well may survive through the winter. You can dig them up and put them in gallons. You can put them in the garage to keep them safe through a freeze over the winter, or you just plant more next year. The packet of seed costs $3, and I'm gonna end up getting 100 perennial dianthus plants out of that single packet of seeds. Now down in the end, these are some salvia that I bought. I think it's called Cleopatra mix. Honestly, they don't look that great. The leaves are kind of puny. They're not very bright green. They're just not doing all that well. So everything I plant doesn't do well. You know, we like to show videos and pictures of the beautiful plants, but everything doesn't always do that well. So those really aren't doing that great. I probably won't grow those next year. We'll see how they do during the season, but we'll see. And this is just yet another 2 tomatoes. I've got plenty of tomatoes growing, as you can see. Now over here on the right, I've got a really pretty red banana plant that's laying on its side. I guess I should pick that up. I need to plant that. It's going right over there. We've never grown bananas here, but we're really looking forward to it. These are just some of the plants that I have for sale when I go to the farmers market. As you can see, I got a whole bunch of more tomatoes down here. I've got tomatoes coming out of my ears, so I really don't know what to do with them all. I've got some smooth blue asters. This is a Peggy Martin rose that I got at that plant swap I mentioned. I picked this up last year. I don't know what I traded for it, but this is a valuable plant, and I'm going to be planting it next to the house very soon, because these Peggy Martin roses, they'll survive freezes, and they're also famous for surviving Hurricane Alicia, if I'm not mistaken. That's where they got their name. They're Peggy Martin roses, named after Peggy Martin, where the horticulturalist found this variety. Now these are passion vines. We had a beautiful crop of passion vine last year. We probably raised 100 Gulf fritillary butterflies, and we had thousands of caterpillars that fed the birds all summer long. Now the birds made a mess on the steps, and so we decided to move these plants. I dug them up, and I ended up getting some of these pups, as you can see. So I love getting plants from plants. So all 3 of these, actually 4 of these passion vines, all are from the single original plant. And I think I'm gonna put these over on the east side of the house to keep them away from foot traffic, but I definitely have to grow these. If you like butterflies, especially the Gulf fritillary butterfly, they're all over Galveston Island throughout the summer. And if you have passion vine for them, you will definitely have them at your house. Now these are Mexican oleanders that I grew from seed. I did a whole video on Mexican oleander. Look that one up and check it out. These are fantastic, beautiful plants. They make the most gorgeous shrub or tree, depending on how you cut it up, how you trim it. And they have the most unusual peach-colored tubular flowers, unlike any oleander flower you've ever seen. Check out the video. I have plenty of these available if you're interested. And taking a few steps around the corner, remember that thing I said about dill? I had this whole row with solid dill last year, and I didn't even bother planting it this year because it just starts popping up all over the place. So these are volunteer dill plants, really pretty. This particular variety is bouquet dill. So you can get bouquet dill from a lot of different sources, but I really enjoyed it. The flowers were absolutely beautiful. I have a picture, I think, of me standing in the middle of all these yellow dill flowers somewhere on the website. Maybe it's my profile picture. Those are flowers from dill. It's phenomenal. Now, remember I mentioned that Victoria Blue Salvia earlier and how much I loved it? Check this guy out. It is about 5 feet tall. This thing froze back to the ground over Christmas when it dropped to 23 degrees for 2 days, and now it's absolutely out of control. I love this. I love this flower. It's gonna flower like this all summer long and into the fall, and there are pollinators on it all the time. There's a particular carpenter bee that loves this, and they're really funny. He's buzzing around here right now. I don't know if you can see it. He's flying so fast, but they like to patrol these areas and keep the other bees away. It's so funny. So they just kind of hover. Oh, you can't really see him. It's hard to see it. No, there he is up there on the top. Anyway, pollinators love these plants, and they're foolproof. They handle the heat. You don't really have to water them that much, and they come back from freezes, no problem. Now, I had some in containers on the deck. Those didn't come back from the freeze, although they make a fantastic container plant. But gosh, get them in the garden, get them in your yard. These survived 23 degrees for 2 days, so they're described as a tender perennial, but heck, they're pretty hardy if you ask me. These are just some phlox I picked up at the nursery to fill in some color. As you can see, I've got a dead plant down there. That is a hibiscus. It looks like it is not coming back from the freeze. I'm tired of replacing plants, so I'm gonna focus on things that I know will come back from a freeze. And as you can see, this one hibiscus did come back, so at least the bigger one in the middle. I'll at least have one hibiscus plant this year to have some of those pretty flowers, but I probably won't do many more hibiscus unless I can find one that's really cold hardy. Now here's a little experiment I'm doing this year. These are more of those daddle peppers. It's an orange hot pepper that I'm growing for sale. I'm gonna be selling them to a restaurant as well as eating them ourselves. I love hot peppers, and I love to have a lot of peppers. I like to pickle them so that I can keep them all throughout the season. Now these are grow bags. These are 5-gallon grow bags. And it's just a way to extend your gardening space. If you have a deck, or if you're challenged by the sun and you need to put a plant in a particular place, you can put a plant in one of these grow bags, and as you can see, they're doing great. These are just as pretty as the ones in the garden. Now you're gonna have to water them a little more because they're gonna dry out faster than plants in your garden. You're gonna have to fertilize them probably every couple of times a month because all that watering is gonna cause the fertilizer to run out. But gosh, grow bags are cool. I'm really interested in seeing how these do, and it can really allow you to add a ton more plants. Now remember earlier I mentioned mist flower? Check this out. This may be my favorite perennial. It's between this and the Victoria Blue Salvia. So this is mist flower, another Texas native perennial. It's native to eastern United States. This is an awesome plant. This is all new growth from December. So it froze back to the ground, but it's beautiful and it's already flowering. And the flowering has just begun. And check out these beautiful purple wispy flowers. When the butterflies are here, they will be all over these plants. They spread via underground rhizomes as well as via seed. So these are gonna spread pretty aggressively, which I don't really mind, because what I do is I just dig up around the edges, as you can see. I dig up any of the plants that I don't want to spread, and I just pot them up. So I found that they're really easy to control. And if the seed blows around and seeds itself, which it will, just dig it up and toss it or stick it in a pot, and you'll have another free mist flower. Now this is another raised bed that we had built recently, and it's just got a bunch of plants that we're gonna have for sale. Again, here's a couple of grow bags. This is a Patio Choice Red and a Patio Choice Yellow tomato. They're doing really well. Look how pretty these tomatoes are. And my hope is that all I'll need is this single stake in here. And they shouldn't get too much taller than this, but these are really prolific tomatoes. These might be my first tomatoes of the year. These are really nice size. Those are gonna start ripening up soon. Over here we have more daddle. We've got some Genovese basil, lots of Genovese basil. That's the classic Italian green basil. More of those dianthus I mentioned, so you can see how many of these I have. I bought one packet of seeds. I might have bought a couple of hundred seed. I must have bought more than that, but regardless, if I spend $10 on the seed, I've got 75 plants, and I think I even have more starting inside. So over here we have some more tomatoes. Remember I said I have tomatoes coming out of my ears? I have tomatoes coming out of my ears. Here's another volunteer zinnia. I had a bunch of zinnias in this bed last year, and I love volunteer plants. You know, it's just like free plants from nature. And then down on the end, I have more of those Victoria Blue Salvia. That's this plant right over here, this gorgeous flowering blue-purple plant. and I grow those from seed as well. So if you're interested in some of these plants, let me know. These are also really easy to grow from seed. I got my Victoria Blue Salvia from Johnny's Selected Seed, which is one of my favorite seed suppliers. Heck, try starting some from seed yourself, and you'll be amazed at how many plants you can grow. Well, that's a quick update from the garden. I sure do appreciate the fact that you guys watch my videos. I think I'm up to 190 subscribers, which is amazing. So thanks to everyone who subscribed. And if you're watching the video and you haven't yet done so, I sure would appreciate it. Give it a thumbs up if you like it. Share this with your gardening friends. And if you have any questions or comments, just post it in the notes, post it in the comments below. I try to respond to every one of them as quickly as possible. My email address is also posted on my YouTube page. Feel free to contact me that way. But anyway, thanks for checking in today. I really do appreciate you. Have a fantastic day.